My name is Rondalyn Korlak.
Hi, this is Scott Brinker.
I'm Michael Brenner.
Hi, this is Scott McCain.
What's up, peeps? My name is Keenan.
Hello, this is Anthony Fasano from the Engineering Management Institute.
My name is Rachel Fish.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tracy Fanara.
And you are listening to the Visible Experts
Visible Expert
Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kelly Waffle, and you're listening to the Visible Expert Podcast. My guest today is Erik Kostelnik. Erik is currently the founder and CEO of Postal.io. He has built and scaled revenue models for companies that were eventually acquired by Twitter, Vista Equity Partners, and Workday. He has hired more than 200 sales reps in 3 countries and has generated over $300 million in new revenue with these startups. Erik is definitely a salesman and an entrepreneur through and through. Erik, welcome to the Visible Expert Podcast.
Thanks, Kelly. Great to be here.
You know, here at Hinge, we define recognized influencers who share their experience and expertise in the B2B and professional services spaces as visible experts. And this podcast is focused on sharing the stories of our guests and illuminating the challenges and rewards to building a personal brand. Erik, you know, looking back at your career, what techniques and tactics did you use to build up your following and get people to listen to you as a subject matter expert?
Wow, that's a good question and could be a very long answer. I got to tell you, I grew up moving a tremendous amount. So my parents were not college educated, but just true hustlers. My dad was a businessman and my mom was an artist. And so we did travel around quite a bit and ended up moving about 10 times by the time I was 15. So at any point in time, I was in a new school or trying to meet new people, and physically, I was always much larger than everybody. I'm 6'6" and 250 pounds. So,
wow.
I was 6'2" when I was 12. So as you can imagine, kind of being a new kid, going to different areas in the country, and you really have to put yourself out there. There's really 2 directions you go. Either you put yourself out there, or you become a wallflower. And so for me, it was always, hey, how can I help myself by trying to figure out how to win friends, influence people at even a very early age. And for me, I always gravitated towards sports, through social activities, through music, through theater, different ways that I could be in a group where I could really kind of show my personality and meet people. So I think I always had a true need for acceptance and tried to really put myself out there. And I think that led to my eventual kind of personality as an adult and led me to want to be an entrepreneur and start businesses so we can start community and really grow something organically, which I've always been used to. So I don't know. That's a little bit of an answer there.
No, yeah, I'd like to dig into that a little bit deeper. So, as far as channels that you use nowadays, obviously, you and I were talking about you're doing a lot of podcasts. Do you do a lot of blogging? Do you do keynote speaking? What else do you do to get your visibility out there?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two different ways that we go about this. Number one, it's kind of my own personal brand as a sales leader, as an entrepreneur, or as a business leader, or a consultant, or investor, or tech expert, or marketing expert, whatever you want to call me, and what I'm passionate about, and what I have subject matter expertise in. And then it's the company that we started with Postal.io, and it's really that brand, that corporate brand, that employment brand, that product brand, and how do you create a true content for the expertise of what that company is trying to produce and the results that company is trying to produce. So we're really good at siloing, and I tend to be really focused on that to say, okay, what are we trying to accomplish in what area, and we really have split those two out. Both benefit each other. Obviously, my expertise and my ability to talk about certain topics that I'm passionate and have intelligence about, and then the expertise of the business and really what we're trying to focus on with helping customers understand how to leverage offline engagement in this whole entire digital world. That really is the focus there. So I think we're taking different avenues for each of those two brands, and the content that we're producing is pretty consistent with each one. So you have either articles being written or podcasts, or taking over podcasts and having our own podcast, doing advertising, going through the process of having our customers speak about us, having my prior employees speak about me, or having my investors speak about how my expertise can be brought forth to help others out. But really the consistent thing about both is, which I am a true believer of, is that we need to make sure that we get better every single day by 1%. And if we can get better every single day, from a personal standpoint, and help educate and help learn, that truly, on the personal side of things, as a brand part of things, help us get better and help our customers or our listeners get better on a daily basis, then it just kind of feeds itself. And I think that's truly how flywheels begin, is the education piece.
That's great. Yeah, I like that 1% quote there. I did a little bit of research on you, but looking back at your journey to becoming a visible expert, can you share with our audience some of the learnings you picked up along the way? I understand that the events of 9/11 in New York may have had some impact on your decisions.
Yeah. I think timing is everything, and I think we're going to look back on this period of time, and people are going to have their own stories about how the pandemic impacted them from a personal and a professional standpoint. Certainly going to school and studying finance during the biggest bubble of all time, between 97 and 2001, and seeing people generate incredible personal wealth through that time with through a process that many could say was very amplified and not even like a real thing. But that experience helped me understand, like, hey, if that comes around, the opportunity to take advantage of a bull market and new ways of doing things, technology, creation of new businesses, that I really wanted to be a part of that. And so I really defined where my path was in college. But then, very abruptly when I graduated, everything changed. And I think that people who came out during the recession in 2007 through 2010, 2008, 2010, the graduated probably had that same experience, and you had the folks that are probably graduating now have a similar experience. So these tough times that make you step back to really help you understand, okay, now that it's really tough to do this, thing that I really wanted to do, what do I need to do to position myself to ensure that I don't miss it when it comes back around? And that really had everything to do with my first kind of 4 or 5 years from graduating college. I moved out to California from Pennsylvania. I got myself in a position where I was creating friends and influencing people that were in technology, even though I wasn't. I was selling cars, right? So positioning myself to try to get into this industry. And then, during the recession came my first opportunity to be in technology. And so even though I was, I was waiting for my time, a kind of a low point gave me an opening, which led me, starting to get into technology. And then at that point, I took the opportunity of hustling harder than anybody I worked with to try to build my my chops and my skills within being a salesperson. And then I realized after a few years in a sales role that I could be a leader of sales, which I eventually became in startups. And then after becoming a leader in sales, I eventually found that, hey, I can actually do this myself. I can start these businesses myself if I create a network of people that can help me do the things that I can't do. And that led me to be an entrepreneur. So I think the long and short of it is that you're going to have challenges. You got to make sure that you position yourself in the right way. You got to make sure that you understand where you want to go and the path that you want to take, and take risks, and know that there's going to be a ton of challenges along the way. But it's all about you and your network and what you actually put forth.
Yeah, that's good advice there. You touched on this earlier, but these are really unprecedented times, unpredictable times, disrupted times, really crazy times. What are the challenges that you are seeing entrepreneurs facing, and what advice would you have for your fellow entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I would say there's three things on this. Number one is that what is happening currently, you can't baseline yourself right now. So, we started a business right in the thick of the pandemic. Yeah, we were building, had raised capital prior to the pandemic, and we're able to establish ourselves as a business prior to everything happening. But if you're starting a business today or started a business over the last 12 months and are just bringing to market, you can't baseline against anything during this time. The sales funnels, the marketing funnels, the usage funnels, everything is completely a whack. So don't worry. And I think that's number two. Don't worry, because you can't baseline.
Oh, okay.
Number two is don't stress, don't worry. Get yourself to a position to where your costs have been like you can create at least a period of 12 months where you're not increasing your costs. If you can decrease your costs, then that's going to be important too. Understand what your burn rate is and how much time that you actually have to zero based on the current revenue you have. If you don't generate any more revenue, or if you don't add any more costs, like what is that time to zero? And we always measure time to zero. So don't worry. Make sure you understand everything. And then number three is that prepare for the upswing. So prepare this is a great opportunity to take a look at your business and say, okay, what is important? What is absolutely critical to my business? And I always say, we're in business not to make friends. Friends are a byproduct of what we do. And if you run a good business, then you end up having a lot of friends, because even if you have to, move resources and do things that are just uncomfortable and not great for everybody, as long as you're transparent, friendly, have empathy, all those things will come about. So, you have to look at your business and say, what is most critical, and if there's parts of your business that are not critical, you need to consider removing those parts of that business, and then planning for what the future is going to bring. Yeah, that's a little bit of a rant of what I focus on and kind of what I think entrepreneurs should be focusing on as well.
No, I think that's great. That puts things in context. So, a lot of people are running in a variety of different directions, but these 3 points here really help kind of prioritize a lot of their focus. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. Erik, I know that technology is a passion of yours. What trends are you seeing emerging this year on the business side and on the consumer side?
Yeah, there's some incredible technology that's being developed on both sides right now. I think we're really going to see a lot of movement on the business side of things. Obviously, companies have been now forced to automate and create virtual work environments much quicker than they probably had planned. I think everybody that has a business out there has always thought about how do I have remote workers? How can I decrease my my spend on the real estate side of things? How does this scale with recruiting talent, all over the world potentially? So I think companies are certainly looking at technology to solve the virtual work challenge that they're facing right now. I think you have a tremendous amount of new computing technology that's happening through the quantum computing that's happening through Google and IBM and Microsoft. So I think we're going to start seeing a little bit further down the road, but you're going to see quantum computing being basically set up as to increase processing speeds, to increase the how fast information travels, how you actually make sense of your information, and then predicting certain events that need to be happening in your business. That's going to be interjected into the technology we currently use, so things will be better and faster. And actually how they manage their work. We've seen fintech really come alive over the last 5 years. And I think the other day, everyone saw Robinhood's new valuation and how much capital they raised. You have a tremendous amount of opportunity to bring financial markets to the everyday person who might not have had that type of opportunity in the past. You also have the cryptocurrencies that are going nuts and starting to be more apparent that companies are starting to use them within payment systems. So there's a lot of that going on. But I think it's really all about how does technology personally help you become more productive, save time, and spend more time in the areas that you want to spend time in.
Personally, are you seeing anything out there that's interesting you around the area of artificial intelligence?
I did some study at MIT about 5 years ago on the practical application of artificial intelligence in the business world, and how companies were starting to use artificial intelligence in kind of the daily applications that they're doing. And really, AI is truly built for taking in information, having an understanding of what you're trying to figure out on that information, or that that big data set, and then running that AI to produce results for you, whether that's from a text perspective, a number perspective, or from a visual perspective, right? So like photos and understanding the actual optical data. So you have all that's happening, that companies are starting to use in self-driving cars, in the way people are marketing. So you actually have a lot of AI that's driving the behavior and what you see as consumers from businesses. But I think that the buzziness certainly left more to be desired on what AI could do. I think everybody really started feeling the challenges around AI, them wanting AI to be a human brain and make the decisions a human would, and then ultimately derive an action from what those decisions were. And we're just not there yet. The cognitive human brain makes decisions much more effectively, and the actions on those decisions much more effectively than a computer. So we still have some ways to go for the computer to act as a human brain, and for it to do the things that we want. Things like that should be, selling product, marketing product, having conversations. I think that we've seen some really big efforts being put towards self-driving cars, and the logic that is happening as a car is driving, with all the data points that it's seeing on the road. But I think ultimately, there's a lot more that needs to happen in order for AI really to replace human jobs. Robotics is certainly, we're starting to see more robots in McDonald's. Cashiers, pretty basic place. Warehousing, pretty basic place to interject robots. So I think a lot of the manual activities will be replaced, and that will be the first kind of phase. Then you have transportation, which will probably be the next phase. But true professional work or white collar work, it's going to be a bit of a time, before we see that being replaced by AI.
So on the flip side, do you see any applications falling out of favor?
That's a good question. That's a good question. On the business side, what's falling out of favor on the business side?
Yeah.
I think companies are looking towards really reducing the amount of friction that it takes to do business with them. I think some of the best companies in the world, you do business with them because it's just easy, right? They make it easy. They either reduce the friction of the buying process, they reduce the friction of the education process or the usage of the product. It just and you look at companies like Slack, right? So Slack has an incredibly easy way to sign up, go through the process of inviting your team, and then educate yourself on actually how you use Slack instead of email. And they built a multi-billion-dollar company out of that concept and making that friction very small. You also see that through Google Cloud and some things that obviously Microsoft is doing as well. But at the end of the day, I think the businesses that have additional friction or have more old school ways of doing business and are not focused on building product-led organizations and rejecting a lot of sales resources or marketing resources, I think they're going to fall out of favor. So I think those that have less friction are going to be more in favor.
That's good. Interesting. I know that creating strong corporate culture and hiring and managing great people are passions of yours and falls into your area of expertise. How do you think these activities are challenged right now by the current pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, again, unprecedented times. The way that you build company culture, it's really the question is how do you build a company culture pre-pandemic, and then how do you build a company culture post-pandemic? I think we're all going to look at this time and be like, wow, like that really is a before and after. And so the way I think about this is that culture, the foundation of culture cannot be determined by executives. So it's not like you and your co-founders and your executive team can say, hey, I want our culture to be this, and then like implement your culture. It just doesn't work like that. The way that we see culture and the way I've seen culture work and not work in the past is that it's really the culmination of all the people that you've hired and all the energy and all the experiences and the personalities that you have that you've hired, and how all those personalities and energies and experiences actually work together. And you can only have them all work together by defining the core values of a company. And so a lot of companies decide on core values after they've gotten going, and they say, that's just like an HR thing. We just got to have these core values that we can put on our website and say, okay, this is what we believe in, right? It's like a box check.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right.
I see that happen all the time. And I personally think that is a big mistake. And again, it's not executives that define the core values of the company. It's the employees that define the core values of the company. Executives should be defining the mission and the purpose of the business that they're starting, because ultimately that's what the foundation of what they're creating is. But core values really need to be defined by the employees. And so, at Postal and at TextRecruit, very early on, we defined those core values, and it wasn't me and my co-founder doing that, it was our employees. So that really having those core values that everybody believes in, and then ensuring that you're visiting one of those core values on a quarterly basis to ensure that people understand what is most, or what they're focused on, and like how people are incorporating all their experiences, education, blah, 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 on that specific core value, and then recognizing those people for those core values is key. And I think now that we're, all at home and working from home for the near future, and having challenges when it comes to working from home as well, those core values will guide what your culture is going to become. And you can still drive the connection of culture to your core values through creating a transparent workforce, meaning that you're really, everything you're doing in your business is everyone feels like they understand the what and the why behind it. And there's sensitive information you can't provide them, but You can help them understand why. But most of the information here at Postal is very transparent to our workforce. And it really makes them feel like it's their company, and it is their company. But it makes them feel like they have control and they have an understanding where this is going. I think that's extremely important. And that's very different pre-pandemic. And even, call it pre-recession, of the 2000s. A lot of companies believe that employees were resources, that were expendable resources. And I think we all understand now that people are the greatest asset that we have. You can't control people. People control themselves, but you have to guide them, and you have to build a culture of understanding and learning and transparency that will ultimately lead to what the culture becomes.
Yeah, that is a little bit different than a lot of the thinking that's out there right now. I saw on your website a video that said that Postal is the first intelligent engagement platform that automates the delivery and reporting of personalized physical assets in the sales and marketing process. Mm-hmm. So what does that really mean?
Yeah. Again, reducing friction to try to make sure people understand what you're doing and why it's important. So we're working on that messaging. But what it really means is that the last 20 years, technology has been built to solve for digital. Okay, so all the marketing automation, all the sales automation, all the technology that has been built on sales and marketing has really been focused on how do you optimize the digital experience that people have: email, advertising, websites, landing pages, phone calls, all that stuff that goes through this digital channel. And really what was completely missed, which by the way, rightfully so, because it was really hard to do, was how do you take all the learnings of marketing automation and actually build something for the offline instead of the online. And so companies like Marketo and HubSpot and Eloqua and these, MailChimp and these, billion-dollar companies, all these new technology that was created on the email or on websites or advertising, completely missed this medium. And so what Postal is focused on doing is creating the same thing that these companies did, but for the offline. And so companies now, especially now, where in the past maybe they were managing brochures or note cards or pieces of swag like a T-shirt or a water bottle, right, or gift baskets or wine that they send. It was kind of all managed in a marketing closet by a marketer that was assigned to sending these things out. And scaling the send of those and managing budget and understanding how companies actually automate and manage all of those sends is a big technical problem, logistical problem. And so what Postal has done is created the technical infrastructure for businesses to manage all of their offline assets through the vendors that provide those offline assets. So all the vendors are inside of Postal. And then all of your inventory is held inside of Postal through those vendors as well. But what Postal is doing is basically saying, for all the contacts that you're engaging with, you need to be sending them note cards or swag or whatever else. It controls the action of sending those things and the reporting back into the systems to make sure that you have now, have record of what you've sent, when you've sent, how much it's cost, and the impact of what you've sent. So the long and short of it is, it's the Marketo for the offline.
Well, that was simple.
Yeah. So after the long explanation I just gave you, it does everything that Marketo does, only for the offline.
So since I worked at Marketo, I know exactly what you do. So.
Yeah, if you use marketing automation in the past, or HubSpot or Salesforce Pardot, you would find that you've been able to automate all your emails and automate landing pages and optimize your advertising channels, building your website. All those things have been very easy. All of those components and technology is in Postal, but for all your stuff that is not inside the computer.
Very good. I did want to get your thinking about building technology companies outside of the Valley or typical metro areas. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's going to be a lot easier now. And I think this is pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. I think a lot of this behavior pre-pandemic has been driven by the ability to raise capital. And so technology companies really are focused on building companies for their customers, building companies for themselves, building companies for the employees that work there. And in order to do that effectively, they had to also be able to raise capital. And, the metros that have been most focused on having easy access to capital are the Bay Area, New York, London, Tokyo, those LA came about, Austin came about, these like 10 or so places that it was much easier to start a company because you could raise easy capital and if it was a good idea and move forward with your scaling. And VCs candidly love seeing people in person. So they love interacting with founders and really deciding, hey, who are these founders that they want to be working with and stay close to. But now it's completely different. Now you have, founders, technology companies that don't want to be in these areas. And that's why you see a mass exodus of these urban locations to more rural places like San Luis Obispo, California, which I moved to. I spent 15 years in the Bay Area, with 4 startups, and I decided that my priorities personally did not align with what the Bay Area had. So, I got 3 young kids. I wanted to make sure that we raised them in a place that had more room, and San Luis Obispo provided a great location for that. And in the past, maybe like 10 years ago, I would have told a VC I'm moving to San Luis Obispo and start a technology company. They'd be like, great, I hope it's a lifestyle business.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you're prepared not to raise any capital because, you're in slow. Even though I'm only 2 hours south of LA, or 2 hours south of San Francisco, 2 hours north of LA. But I think that's changed. And so, we were able to raise a $9 million Series A round, pre-product. And that partly was in fact because I had experience in that. Right. The VC that invested in us, obviously knew me prior to me moving here. But I think that this is going to follow suit. I think, especially now that we're virtual, VCs are really starting to get more virtual and more comfortable with the idea of investing in companies all over the country. So that's going to be a big change. And I think, people during this time right now, post-pandemic, you're going to have a lot of people that start businesses. The best time to start a business is during a recession.
Yep.
Best time to start is in a pandemic too. We'll just lump those recession and pandemic into.
All right.
Right. So, but I think you're going to find a lot of people saying, hey, you know what? Either they got laid off or people got to make it work. And a lot of those people will say, I've had this idea for a long time. I want to try to go after it. And I would encourage them, while looking at your risk profile and obviously your financial standing, but to take those risks now because amazing companies are going to be built during this period of time.
Yeah. And like you, I think there are a lot of people out there that have that hustle inside of them and are just waiting to get that to come out of them.
Yep. And it's the risk tolerance. How do they feel like, it's the risk tolerance for them, for their family, for their experience, for their career. What does the risk tolerance look like? And so I think more people will be willing to have more of a risky tolerance during a time that's more down because it's what do they have to lose? It's a really hard time right now to work, and it's a really hard time to be, in the job market if you don't have a position. Or current employment. So I think there's going to be obviously more opportunity and more risk taken during this period of time. Because during a bull time, during like a bull market and everybody's happy and making a ton of cash, pretty risky to give up what you had, right? Yep. But now that if you have less, it's probably easier to take a risk.
Yep. You had mentioned before you had 3 kids. Am I reading this right? You've got a pair of twins as well as part of the 3? Yeah,
we have an 8-year-old and twin 5-year-olds who are going into kindergarten. going into kids for their first year of kindergarten, and it's virtual kindergarten. So we're going to see how that works out.
Well, good luck with that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so finally, we're getting close to wrapping up. I heard that you wrote songs and played the guitar in a rock band back in the 2000s. Are you still playing the guitar?
I try to play as much as I can. Now it's more lullaby songs at night for bed, but I'm still bringing still playing the stuff I used to love to play. So my kids are enjoying it. But that's funny you brought that up. But yeah, I mean, I again, like kind of how we started the conversation of, how do you meet people and create resources and a network and a community. Part of that for me was music, and I have always been playing music since I was young. My parents got me into playing the saxophone and clarinet and trumpet, kind of playing everything when I was a young kid. And so I've taken that, taught myself guitar, and of course, every 20-year-old wants to be a rock star. So I tried to do it. And it's like one of those entrepreneur things, right? It's like, hey, I think I can do this. I see these guys. I feel like I'm as good as them. Like, maybe I should just try to do it myself. And, we started a band and released an album and toured and did all that fun stuff. And it was so much fun. And that experience was incredible. But that defined who I am as well. But yeah, now it's just pleasure. And maybe when I'm retired, I can go back to playing songs at the bars in Avila Beach. So we'll see.
So who are some of your favorite guitarists?
Guitarists or just guitarists?
Either. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, musicians. So personally, I'm a huge fan of old guitars. And so, old acoustic, Gibsons and Martins and Kays, and I have a Harmony Vibrajet, a 1966 Harmony Vibrajet that is amazing, and I've got a couple Fenders as well. But so I'm kind of a purveyor of old guitars. But as far as musicians go, I kind of run the gambit. It's really tough for me to say, hey, like, what's your favorite guitarist? Who's your favorite musician? Because I've listened to so much. I'm a huge Beatles fan, just original, great music. But I love the blues. And I also love I love kind of the new age rock that's happening right now. And Black Keys are some of my favorite bands, and Jack White and White Stripes and Raconteurs, but I love folk music too, so I can really enjoy Joshua Radin and Iron Wine and all these guys. So, but it's depending on the mood. It's depending on the mood. I can even get into punk rock. Back in the '90s, I'll still play punk in the office, but we've always got some station going here, and yacht rock is kind of the normal station. Toto and Hall & Oates and all those guys are usually playing here, easy listening. But anyway, I could rant for hours on music, but I'm a big fan.
That's great, though. Yeah, it shows a different side of you. No. Well, that's all I've got. So this really concludes our podcast. I really enjoyed it. I think I've learned a lot and wrote down a lot of notes. You had some great insights today. So thank you so much for your time, Erik.
Well, I really appreciate it, Kelly. Great interview, and I wish you well.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.